Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Conscious Investors, welcome back to another incredible episode with another extraordinary, amazing, and a good friend of mine guest, which I love it when I get to have friends on the podcast. But I just want to welcome Flint. Welcome to the Conscious Investor.
Thank you. I feel like I finally arrived. I get to be on your podcast.
I don't even know why you haven't been on the podcast before, but all things in their perfect timing.
Well, this is round one because we're going to have to do this again next year because so many things are going to change.
This is really true. A lot of things are going to change because as we were talking off air, like all these things are happening, boom, 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 boom in your life right now. So I feel like it's popcorn. Do you remember the Muppets and there's a popcorn sketch and there's the guys in the kitchen and there's like way too much.
Recognize it.
Way too much popcorn. My kids has shown that to me like once or twice a year. So I have.
Is that because that's what your life is like?
No,
is that why your kids show it to you?
I'm saying that's what your life is like right now. Because I happen to be a big fan of popcorn, so it's a very good thing, and you have lots of really good things popping up all over in your life.
Yes, that is happening right now. It's good.
It is happening, but you've done a significant amount of legwork. It didn't just happen.
Correct.
And like popcorn, I did not even plan this analogy. This is brilliant. But like popcorn, you have to let the kernels sit and get hot first, and you have to be patient. And so, you put the kernels in the container, the pot, and you've been waiting, working, making sure they're staying hot. So what have you been doing? Let's even back up. What's up with investing? Why did you even choose investing? I do want to go to the Genesis moment because I've never heard that from you.
Yeah. So we'll go into the way back machine. 2018, probably before that, I wanted to get good with investing, and I started listening to like investing in stocks podcasts, and I was just like, this is horrible. I can't. It feels like gambling. And then I always knew I wanted to do real estate. So then I dug into bigger pockets, and then I bought a duplex. I Burred a duplex, which I am selling on Monday. I bought that in 2018, and I didn't succeed in the Burr, but it cash flowed really well, and I'm making a lot of money on the sale. So
holy cow. Is that in the Denver area?
No, it's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's totally random.
So gosh, I'm supposed to listen to your story, but I'm an interrupter. Everybody knows this.
Oh, this is fun. I was just going to blow past the story.
But this is where a lot of investors just have a full stop. They're like, it's not my backyard. I can't buy on my market. It's overpriced, blah, blah, blah. All the excuses come up. And so they don't take action. And you're like, so I'm just projecting this on you. Denver is crazy. Here are all the excuses. Let me just go up to Milwaukee.
Yeah. So I happened across a guy who was kind of enabling the Burr strategy for investors. Like he was essentially the wholesaler offering properties, and then he would have the general contractor, and he was a real estate agent, right? So he's offering this Burr service. So every week I would get this listing of properties he had, and they kind of had projections on rent, right? And so they kind of did the underwriting. I do my own. Anyway, it was kind of like a turnkey Burr service. Like all first properties, it took twice as long and twice as much money. It was painful. And I was on a hard money loan. That was the first time, I didn't even really understand hard money until I had to get into that deal because it's a wholesale.
And until you're dealing with the interest on hard money and everything.
Yeah, 12%. It was painful, and it was supposed to be done in 3. I think it took 6. It hurt, right? And then I couldn't even cash out refi in the end because I just brought the place up to the value of. I bought it for 80 and I brought it up to 120. Or the value was 120, but I spent all that money to get it up to 120 anyway. So I'm selling it for 170 now. Nice. And it actually cash flowed really strong. here's a, let me unpack this a bit more.
Yeah.
We just found out that the lady that was renting it was running a group home for Alzheimer's patients. She had 6 patients in a 3-bedroom, one side of the duplex or the lower unit, 3 geriatric Alzheimer's patients she was taking care of. This is a commercial operation that was happening within my duplex.
So it's almost like arbitrage.
It was a breach of contract. It was lots of liability on me, right? If someone fell, hurt themselves, right? She was running commercial. It's just bad news all around. And then I searched it. I found my property on a website. Hey, bring your Alzheimer's patients to us. It's $3,500 per patient a month. $3,500 a month per
You're like,
patient.
I could have been making so much more money.
I could have been like triple net lease, making so much money. I was charging her $1,750 a month, and she actually earlier this year stopped making payments. She was filing for government assistance. Like, things are going sideways, and she's making $3,500 per patient driving a Mercedes, right?
Oh my word.
But I'm selling it, and I just get off my plate. It's going to be wonderful.
Okay. Since we're just going to have to take our time going through your story, because I'm going to pick this apart because it's interesting. But this is exactly why my husband and I left the whole single family space. It's like, it's so much work, and there's so much liability in it. But like, what are your thoughts on that? And where was your turning point on like, I'm going to change into something else?
So now that I'm more successful in getting into the syndication world, I didn't want to deal with the single family. Like, a windstorm came through and took down the neighbor's fence, and I had to deal with that. The property manager for 3 years didn't even catch the fact that she was running a group home out of the property. Or
was she in on it?
To be honest,
plot thickens.
I did think that, because the property manager they were so hard to get a hold of. Anyway, I got to leave them a bad review, but yeah, I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I knew now is probably the best time to sell, get out of it, turn that money back into a syndication as like an LP. So then it's just passive income, right? I just want to build my passive income flow. Along with the active side. Right.
So I know you well enough to know you have this like drive, like, one, you're super successful at your job, your W-2 as we all call it, but why you really want to, like, let me just leave that behind and move on and migrate into this other world. What is that? Because there's this interesting, I was having this conversation on social media with a top tier real estate attorney in his group. And the conversation went towards, not everybody wants to leave their W-2. You know, like, some people like their jobs. A lot of people like their jobs. So like, what is that? What do you think the benefit will be of you transitioning out of that?
Yeah, I like the term work optional. So nice. Yeah, I have a cool job. I'm a program manager. I modify aircraft for the Air Force. I'm formerly engineer. I've designed parts on the 787.
He's really smart, people. You always downplay everything that you do.
Those jobs I have worked so hard on, right? Takes a lot of time and stress in my life. I have 2 young kids, a 3 and a 5-year-old. I need more time freedom. And I would just love to be more work optional. And to be honest, the syndication world has so much passion in it. Like yourself, we go to these conferences and everybody is just driven and jazzed and loves what they do. There's so much passion to give. You don't really get that. Like, I go to an engineering conference and it's nothing like that. So I just love the interaction in this world.
It's pretty contagious. And you can do this from a catamaran in the Caribbean.
Yes.
As you travel the world. So
absolutely. Yeah, right. Time freedom, geographic freedom. Yes, I could work from a catamaran. And that was one of the first conversations we had when we met, right?
It was. Yeah.
We must have talked for like 2 hours just jamming about the world and solving problems and living on a catamaran, because
Yeah, like you can
I
travel
really
the
want
world.
to do that.
Geographical freedom. This is amazing. So we're going to go back. You're selling your duplex. You're going to reinvest that. You're getting out of small multi, staying away from single family, really eyes locked forward, because you see. Now, this is where a lot of people don't see it. And literally, I went, I have some friends locally. They're turning a unit of their duplex. And I got home and I just looked at my husband and I said, I am so glad that we are not in that space anymore. I will never say never. I said, I just never want to return back to that small multi or the single family space, because we're not lazy people, but I don't see myself as an 80-year-old person, like cleaning a unit or prepping a unit for the next person. Like, so everything I'm doing right now is to like lay the track for, 80-year-old Julie. Like,
Yeah.
and, passive investing is really a great way of doing that. I'm on the active and passive side right now. I love both worlds. There was a point to that. So I guess my question then is, when you think about that transition and you think about people listening right now, how would you help them understand the benefit of, like, no, I understand you own 100% of this. This is better over here.
So I have a lot of friends who do single families and they're doing well. And I've been trying to show them the light, because what a lot of people end up doing, they get to where we are, they start out the single family, they'll do duplex, quadplex, and say, it's not enough, right? Like, I calculated I need 50 doors before I decide I can quit and ramp. 50 doors takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of capital too, right?
Right.
And then people move on to flipping and wholesaling, and then ultimately they'll end up where we are at the syndication. Luckily, I totally pivoted and leapfrogged from one duplex to syndication, because I came across the right podcast. But I'm trying to show others the light, like, even just, you don't need to go spend $120,000 to buy that property in Seattle for a single family home. Why don't you just put it in a passive investment? You don't have to do all the work. Some of them are afraid to give up the control, right? They want full control. And I think that's the biggest leap. If you really need the control as a passive investor, you have to give it up. But for the most part, it's an education, right? It took me a while, right? As soon as I heard that syndication podcast by Michael Blanc, I listened to podcasts for probably a year. Now I'm kicking myself because I took so long. I could be in a much different place right now if I acted. So I tell people,
be on the catamaran in the Caribbean.
I would be there right now. Yes. I constantly tell people, stop trying to learn everything right now. You're not going to do everything. Learn it all at a high level and drill in on one thing, be good at one thing. Act, partner. This is team sport. That's the other part.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I don't want to, single family home. I'm doing it on my own.
Everything's on your shoulders. Exactly. Do you see, y'all hear that silence? That was like, that was a silence of like, oh, there's such a better way.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, definitely. Well, and part of your going back to our popcorn, and partly what you did to keep that heat cooking on those kernels is your wife's, I was going to say she splits, but that has a bad connotation. She takes off and her work takes her down to Antarctica, and she's down there. I don't know. Is she working with penguins? Like, what is she doing in Antarctica? And you're home alone working at the super high level job with the kids and stirring the pot over here to make sure none of the kernels burn. So tell us what's going on.
So she did HR in Antarctica. I know that sounds weird, but there's 1,200 people at McMurdo base. So during the summer season, so you kind of need a full suite of that management and everything. But let me back up a little bit. So in the summer last year, 2021, I tried to purchase a 23 unit apartment complex with a couple newbie syndicators. The deal failed. No investors were harmed in it. I was harmed. I lost a lot of money. But one of the reasons we failed is because we couldn't raise money. And actually, that was right at the time I met you at Dealmaker.
We met, and I remember tracking this and following along and being like texting, like, I'm so sorry. So sorry for your loss.
But the key here is, yeah, I mean, the Burr, it didn't really work, but it wasn't a failure. You just got to keep going. You got to keep going. And so I realized we couldn't raise money, and that was one of the biggest downfalls. And I turned around, I got mentorship, and I dug in. I needed an online presence. I needed, email campaigns. I needed a whole shebang, learn how to market, learn how to do sales. My wife takes off for 2 months. We have a 3 and a 5-year-old. She goes down to Antarctica because you don't just fly down there for 2 weeks. You go for a long time. And I'm managing, one kid's going to kindergarten, the other kid's going to daycare. I have my program management job, modifying aircraft during the day. And
nothing. I mean, if you mess up at your job, I mean, like, really, no big deal. Sorry, plane that just crashed.
Yeah, I have the FAA and the military watching over us, making sure we do everything right. Yeah, it's simple. There's no stress.
No stress at all. No hundreds of millions of dollars on the line or anything like that.
Yeah. So during that time, I was still grinding it out. And then my wife returns home early December timeframe. I get invited to GP with another really established group to get in on my first successful deal. We closed on February 10th of this year. So yeah, just grind it out. It was hard. It was super hard, but success came from it.
For sure. And I think that everyone that I have ever had on the podcast, they might not overtly say it. I've heard other people say this, like, what you see, the result, the net result of what people see or hear on a podcast is usually the culmination of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of that. Oh yeah, I birthed this. It didn't kill me. I didn't lose on it, but it was time suck, and it was part of the learning journey. Or, I did lose I lost some personal capital, and I've mentioned this fairly often on the podcast on an e-commerce store that I was an LP in last year. Talk about getting schooled up, like, you just have to have these little life lessons where, that's how you learn. And it kind of creates those bumpers to keep you on the course, or get you back on the course.
Yeah. I think for most of us that are successful, or the people that are really successful out there, they all have failures. And you have to know getting into something that you're going to fail, because that's the only way you're going to learn. And you may not see it coming. And it's fine. You just have to embrace it, because there's still success around the corner. So you got to keep moving.
This is so true. So what would you say your biggest lesson was when I think about your first multifamily deal that went south, that you lost on? Man, you took the hit on that one.
I did.
You did. But I think I always think that creates a level of credibility. Like, I went and we had an accepted LOI. We were working on, other elements of a project in Columbus, Ohio. And I just drew a line in the sand and said, this is what needs to happen in order for me to bring my investors to this deal, because here are my red flags. And we weren't able to meet those. So I did actually lose out on money on that, my own personal money. It was a very small nominal amount, comparatively speaking. And
it was like due diligence inspection.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay, well, I'd rather lose out on that than bring investors to the table and have this go sideways. So and I feel like that builds some level of credibility. It's like, I'm not going to let the investors lose. So what have you learned from that experience? And how do you think your investors view that?
It's interesting. So actually, we hardly got any investors for that, right? It was just, that's where we failed. I learned a lot about the types of deals that my investors were willing to get in. We even had a KP that should have been able to bring a bunch, and he couldn't because it was a small deal. It was a heavy lift. And a lot of the bigger investors out there were looking, they didn't want to put money into something unless it was 80, 100 plus that was like a moderate lift, not a super heavy lift. So that, yeah, but like you said, it's investors first. And those of us who care, yeah, we take hits all the time financially. We will take a hit just to protect the investors. Actually, I remember when we met, you were just describing who you were, right? You were talking about each other, and then you had this podcast that was branded something different, right? And in my mind, meeting you for the first time, I'm like, wow, you must be super experienced. You've been around for a couple of years doing this. And I asked you, how many deals did you do? And you said none. And your response to that, because I gave you this look like, what? No way.
You did. It was hilarious.
And you said it's because you were too picky. And that still sticks with me today. That's a profound moment. We have to be picky for our investors.
Top shelf deals. Literally, that'll probably be on my website. When I redo my website, I'll probably have something to do with top shelf deals only. Like, it has to be the best deals ever, every time.
And they are getting harder and harder to find.
I think that we might be perpetuating, there's a term for this. My husband's really good with all these little terms for things, but when you like say the same narrative over and over and everyone's repeating it. And so I think it is more challenging than it was. I think we have a lot of people flooded into this space right now.
Correct.
It's easy, it's fun, it's sexy, it's whatever you want to label it, And so we've got a lot of people that will exit this space, in the next 5 years. The space will, trim some people out.
That's true.
And so I don't know that the deals are harder or if it's just that narrative or the people.
Yeah. And the other thing, like I'm partnering with some other groups that just have connections, right?
Exactly.
The deal finders it's all on them. I don't think right now I am not a deal finder, and I'm not trying to be. I partner with the people that are good at it, and those that can go just, befriend brokers all over the place. They're the ones that are finding the really good deals.
And that's where you and I mean, as people who work, as representatives of investors, I want to ace that. That's what I want to ace. And someone else is going to ace. This is that team sport that we love so much. Like, great. Yeah. You go ace acquisitions and you go ace asset management. We all know how to be in each other's spaces. But I mean, if everybody's playing at their top tier level, it creates this incredible, that right there to me is taking care of the investors. If you can bring the top tier people to your investors with a top tier deal, can it get better than that?
Yeah, that's when we outperform. That's
it. Exactly. So I'll let someone else ace the acquisitions.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're working on some really, really cool things. You're like working on a fund.
Yes.
Tell us about, I am like still a little.
So this is all happening very fast.
The popcorn is popping. All of these things are happening.
So February 10th, we close on the 104 unit. And then in March, I'm talking to my mentors, and they mentioned that they had done a self-storage fund. So I'm like, okay, tell me more. And they start feeding me the information. I'm like, I can do this. As they're talking to me about how they did it, I realized I could do it. So then they got me contacts. I reach out to the contacts, and lo and behold, there's a big fund opening up that I can be a fund of fund on. And so I started the process, and I'm bringing in some more teammates to join me in our fund. And the best part is I reached out to someone who's very experienced in funds. just asking her for some support, some tools, some guidelines, and she immediately turns around and said she wanted to join. So out of this, I got a mentor who's on the team who wants to raise funds for her own investors within our fund. I mean, everything's just coming together on it. And I hope we start raising in a month. It's happening super fast. You know, find out mid-March that I can do something, and a month and a half later, I could be raising.
It's so exciting. All right, walk us through why do you love the fund model? Because I think there are a lot of people that are still on the they're still new enough on the scene to where people are trying to see how it fits into their wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's funny. I would say if you asked me 3 months ago if I'd do a fund, I'd be like, no, it's going to take me a year to build up more experience, more street cred, just to even do a fund. And then I realized I was viewing a fund wrong, right? I could open a fund now. The cool thing about a fund is when you partner with these big operations that buy a whole bunch of properties, in this case, it's self-storage. So they're going to create this huge portfolio of self-storage, and they need help raising money. So we come in with fund, and we're on the LP side. So I don't have to worry with anything else. Yeah. Well, there's SEC because we still have a PPM on the fund, but
true.
All the deal finding, asset management, all of that is just the big operator. We're bringing the money. And then we're kind of the LPs. It's cool.
That's really cool. So on the management side though, how is the fund going to be managed? What does that look like?
Yeah. So there's a group of us that are going to manage it. We're all going to bring our own investors to the fund, and then we'll write a big check to the big operator. We get a higher preferred rate and returns, bringing a large chunk of money to the operator. Mm-hmm. So us as managers, we skim a little bit off the top to pay for fees and to pay for ourselves, right? And then the investors will get, say, like a 7% preferred return and then some upside on the backside. So we kind of ride along with them on the deal.
That's really, really nice. It is a nice way, it's just a different type of collaboration and teamwork. It's still partnerships and teamwork. Everybody's coming to the table. It's just checkers versus chess, maybe something like that, right? Like,
yeah.
We're just playing with different pieces now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, how often are people with distributions on the fund model that you're going to use? Everyone goes about these things in a different way. Distribution wise, like what does that look like for your investors?
This is all unfolding right now.
You're like, come on, we're still in the middle.
I'm still trying to learn. No, I believe it'll be quarterly. I don't think monthly distributions is just a lot of overhead and costs that are not necessary. I know that some groups are going there because they like to say they put a smile on your face every month versus once a quarter. But then I've also heard like once you're an LP, at some point you don't care that there's a small chunk that comes every month versus a bigger chunk that comes every quarter. You're in it for the long game. You're not in it for I got to make my bills. I hope I get my monthly distribution on my passive income. So
yeah,
I'm still trying to figure things out as far as like how the upside works on these giant portfolios, because this thing is going to open and ride for a while. They're not going to raise all the money right out of the gate because they can't deploy all that money right away. So they do multiple raises throughout a year, which is extra fun for us because we can do some raise right out of the beginning. Say we raise $1 million. And then they can reopen it in August and we can raise another $1 million and bring more investors and more money. So there's this kind of cascading flow of
that's nice.
Bringing people in, and they'll keep on bringing properties on. So there's a lot of things to learn about how to manage as more investors, more money comes in, more properties added to the portfolio, right? And then the upside on the backside. And so, yeah, I'm excited.
It's really, really exciting. It's exciting for the investors also because anytime the investor wins, I mean, that's that's the ultimate win right there.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Okay. So as we kind of wind down, I'm just thinking about some of the conscious investors listening right now, and they want to take their next steps. They're excited to take their next steps. They're nervous, all of those feelings. And there's this personal development component that really has to take place. I've noticed for almost unanimously, people have to grow as people in order to be successful in this space, even on the passive investment side. So, your advice on that personal growth development, how would you suggest people go about that?
Contact me or you. So to be honest, it is an education. That's first and foremost for new people trying to get in. Don't feel pressured to get into a deal. You need to learn about it. You need to feel comfortable. You need to develop a relationship with the syndicator or the manager, right? So, I mean, for me, go to vestascapital.com and get a hold of me. To be honest, I have a free report, but to be honest, just get on a call with me. I love talking to people. Let me just answer all your questions straight out, and then I can point you towards resources as needed.
I actually really like that response a lot, because a lot of times people have just go and get this resource, but it's like, that might not be what somebody actually needs. That might not be what's going to take them to the next level of anything. And so,
Yep.
Having that phone call, making that phone call, having that conversation allows you to have that real concierge, service brought to you.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a family member last night, and they're still trying to learn from me, but they kind of came into the conversation swinging like, well, I should do a REIT instead of the syndication because of reasons. And I was like, okay, slow down. The main point there was, I think he was trying to just challenge me for like, what do I know? Right. It's just, this is like family dynamics things happening.
Right.
But I was like, look, this is an education. I can use your money to help you make money, but I don't need your money. So let's take a step back and let's just learn. Mm-hmm. You can please join my investor club. That way you get all the emails, you can see the capital calls, just sit back passively. Don't even have to invest, just watch the process happen. Watch how I present deals, watch the differences between deals, right? Learn. And then at some point when you're comfortable, you can choose to invest.
It's a great way of going about it. Did it diffuse a family member?
Yeah. And then at the end, he's like, wow, Flint, sounds like you really know what you're talking about.
You're like,
I was like,
go figure. Yeah. I've been doing this for a while. And it's really great though. It takes time for people to, especially I feel those that are closest who oftentimes put us in a box. I had to really work and still do work a bit at branching out of that teacher box. A lot of people had me in, and it's you have to, I basically worked to rebrand myself. Like, I don't associate. That was a great part, and I love that part of my timeline, but like there's this new association that needs to be made because I can support you, and that power, that importance of being able to say the world is changing, let's make sure you're prepared for it. Like,
yeah, totally. This reminded me of another example. I mean, family members, like an older family member still views me as a child. And I had to be like, I am a program manager running a $120 million program to modify aircraft. And they're like, oh, okay, Flint's no longer a kid.
No, we just can't. Like, it is interesting how we have to reposition ourselves within everything. Yeah, so much fun. Well, Flint, do you have any final words? I don't want to I don't like cutting conversations. I don't like bringing them to an end, but it is that time. But I'd love to give you the opportunity if there's anything else, and if there's any, call to action, anything that you would like to offer up, here you go.
Yeah, I think I already did it. Really, I just love educating people. And if you want to learn more, go to vestascapital.com. It's VESTUS capital.com. I'm debating if I need to rebrand. If I need to have a name that I can just say and people know how to go to it versus me spelling it. Anyway,
oh, I love it.
Side point.
Side point. Now, here's the thing. If you're listening, you want to make sure that you do go and that you get onto Flint's investor list and everything. And here's the thing. Take this how you want to take it. The government trusts him with $120 million. Like some people might take that one way as like, oh, the government. But I mean, the ability of what like you're already executing things at a super high caliber. And those are the kind of people that I like to have in my life. And those are the kind of people I like to invest with, like people who are high caliber, top performing in whatever it is that they are doing. I don't care if you're a soccer coach or, like whatever it is that you're doing, if it's high caliber, super great. I want to invest with you. So you need to go check out Flint, see what he's all about. Make sure you get on his investor list. That's my personal endorsement here as well.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
I don't know how, what weight that carries, but I am saying, it's really important to make sure that you check things out, because remember, everybody doesn't have a bunch of deals constantly. And there are times where actually I have a friend that wants to get into the RV space. I happen to interview somebody who's in the RV space today, but that Perfect. Friend wants to be on the passive side. Perfect. That person just put down like 2 deals on that. So it's always good to know who you can connect people with. And as passive investors, it's good to know, identify the sponsors that you want to, potentially invest with, because if they don't have an investment now, 3 months, 5 months, they probably will. And you want to be on that list, primed and ready.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right. Well, amazing conscious investors, please remember that adventure belongs on the trail. Good golly, not in your investment portfolio and not in your personal life. So please make sure that you are investing wisely. Please make sure that you are getting the coaching that you need personally so that you can, show up to the world in every way that you want to. Until next time, live big, love bigger. What's the big deal about investing in apartments? Why is it better than investing in a slew of single-family homes? I've compiled a lot of information on why investing in a multifamily, also known as apartments, will help you reach your investment goals. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download the Why Invest in Multifamily guide today.